A pregnant teenager is kicked out by her own family after a dark secret is revealed. On a rainy night, alone and desperate, she doesn't know where to turn. 15 years later, she returns, but this time, those who once rejected her will face a shocking truth. Before continuing the story, tell me which city you're watching from. I want to know how far this video has come. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so I can send you exciting stories like this every day. Lily Harris stood in her childhood bedroom, her trembling hands clutching the positive pregnancy test. At just 16, her whole world was about to collapse. Outside, the late autumn rain tapped against the window panes of their pristine suburban home, a house that had always been more about appearances than warmth. Pregnant, her mother's voice cracked like a whip through the silence. Helen Harris stood in the doorway, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the frame so tightly, her knuckles turned white. This is impossible. This cannot be happening to our family. Lily's father, James, a prominent local judge, pushed past his wife into the room. His face, usually composed for the courtroom, was twisted with rage and disappointment. "Who is the father?" he demanded, his voice dangerously quiet. Mark Cooper," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. "The mechanic's son?" Helen's laugh was hollow. "Oh, this is just perfect. 16 years of private education, all our sacrifices, and you throw it away for some boy from the wrong side of town? He's not like that, Mom. He's kind, and he works so hard." Dash enough. James's fist came down on Lily's desk, making her jump. "You have exactly 1 hour to pack whatever you can carry. After that, you're no longer welcome in this house." "Daddy, please, Dash." Lily's voice broke, tears streaming down her face. "You've made your choice." Helen cut in, her voice ice cold. "We won't have our reputation ruined by a teenage pregnancy scandal. What would the country club say? What would your father's colleagues think?" That hour passed in a blur of tears and hurried packing. Lily stuffed whatever she could into her school backpack and a small duffel bag. Some clothes, her grandmother's locket, the little money she'd saved from babysitting, and a worn photo album. As she walked down the curved staircase for the last time, she caught a glimpse of herself in the hallway mirror. Her long brown hair was messy from crying, her green eyes red-rimmed. She looked so young, so scared. "If you walk out that door," her mother called from the top of the stairs, "don't ever think about coming back." The heavy front door closed behind Lily with a final thud. She stood on the porch, rain soaking through her thin jacket, watching as the porch light went out, leaving her in darkness. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, dialing Mark's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Again and again she tried, each attempt more desperate than the last. Later, she would learn that his family had moved suddenly that very morning, his father accepting a job offer in another state. Mark had no idea she was carrying his child. That first night, Lily found herself at the local 24-hour diner, nursing a cup of coffee she could barely afford. Nancy, the night shift waitress with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair, kept watching the soaked teenager with growing concern. "Honey," Nancy finally said, sliding into the booth across from Lily, "I get off in an hour. My sister runs a women's shelter downtown. How about we get you somewhere warm and dry?" Lily just nodded, too exhausted and frightened to refuse help. The shelter became her temporary home, but Lily refused to be another statistic. During the day, she worked 2 jobs, mornings at a local bakery and afternoons filing papers at a small law firm. At night, she studied for her GED, determined not to let her education slip away. "You've got fire in you, girl." Ms. Linda, the shelter's director, often said, "Don't you ever let anyone put it out." When her daughter Chloe was born on a warm spring morning, Lily held her tiny hand and made a promise. "We're going to make it, baby girl. Somehow, we're going to prove them all wrong." The next few years were a blur of endless work and sleepless nights. Lily moved from the shelter to a tiny studio apartment, took online college courses between shifts, and never missed a day of work. Chloe grew into a bright, curious child with her mother's green eyes and determination. Through a stroke of luck, or perhaps destiny, Lily's filing job at the law firm led to an opportunity. One of the partners, Isabel Zhang, noticed how Lily stayed late to study law books in the break room. "Why are you so interested in contract law?" Isabel asked one evening, finding Lily poring over a thick volume. "I want to understand everything," Lily replied. not lifting her eyes from the page. Knowledge is something no one can take away from you. Isabel became Lily's mentor, helping her secure scholarships for law school. With Chloe in tow, Lily moved to attend classes, working part-time at the university's legal aid clinic. They lived in a small apartment, survived on ramen noodles and dreams, but they were together. Years passed. Lily graduated with honors, passed the bar exam, and slowly built a reputation as a fierce advocate for family law and children's rights. Chloe grew into a thoughtful teenager who inherited her mother's resilience and determination. Then came the news that would bring Lily's past rushing back. "Mom," Chloe said one morning, holding up her tablet, "isn't this Grandpa?" The screen showed a news article about Judge James Harris's retirement and the massive charity gala being thrown in his honor. Lily stared at the photo of her parents, barely aged despite the decade that had passed, still perfectly poised for the camera. "Yes," Lily whispered, touching the screen. "That's them." Chloe, now 15, squeezed her mother's hand. Maybe it's time they met their granddaughter. Lily looked at her daughter, this wonderful, strong girl who had never known her grandparents, and made a decision. 10 years had passed. She wasn't that scared 16-year-old anymore. She was Lily Harris, JD, partner at Zhang & Associates, and it was time to go home. The Harris family's annual charity gala had always been Cedar Brook's most prestigious social event. This year, celebrating Judge James Harris's retirement, the guest list read like a who's who of local society. The grand ballroom of the Cedar Brook Country Club sparkled with crystal chandeliers and carefully curated decorations. Lily stood outside in her tailored navy suit, her legal credentials and invitation in hand. Next to her, Chloe wore a simple but elegant blue dress, her long brown hair swept into a graceful updo. They looked more like sisters than mother and daughter. "Ready?" Lily asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Chloe squeezed her mother's hand. "They're the ones who should be nervous, Mom." Inside, the party was in full swing. Helen Harris fluttered between guests, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her designer dress impeccable. James stood near the podium, accepting congratulations with practiced judicial dignity. "Name?" the event coordinator asked, checking her list. "Lily Harris," she replied clearly, her voice carrying across the entrance hall and guest. The coordinator's eyes widened with recognition. Whispers rippled through the nearby crowds like wind through autumn leaves. Helen Harris froze mid-conversation, her champagne glass suspended halfway to her lips. Lily walked forward, her heels clicking against the marble floor. The crowd parted unconsciously, creating a path to where her parents stood. James's face had gone pale, while Helen seemed to be struggling to maintain her social smile. "Hello, Mother, Father," Lily said, her voice carrying in the sudden silence. "Congratulations on your retirement." "Lily," James managed, his usual courtroom confidence nowhere to be seen. "This is unexpected. What are you doing here?" Helen hissed, trying to keep her voice low despite her obvious distress. "I came to introduce you to someone," Lily replied calmly. She gestured to Chloe, who stepped forward. "This is Chloe Harris, your granddaughter. She's 15 now, top of her class and captain of the debate team." The resemblance was unmistakable. Chloe had James's height and Helen's elegant features combined with Lily's determined green eyes. Several guests gasped audibly. "I'm also here," Lily continued, her voice gaining strength, "because I thought you might be interested in my recent appointment as the youngest partner at Zhang & Associates law firm. My specialty is family law, helping young mothers and children in crisis. I wonder where I got that inspiration from." Helen's face flushed red. "This is hardly the time or place, Dash." Actually, Isabel Zhang stepped forward from the crowd. "It's the perfect time. Lily is one of our most valuable partners. She's established 3 shelters for teenage mothers, 1 landmark cases for children's rights, and just received the State Bar Association's Young Lawyer of the Year award." The whispers grew louder. Lily could hear snippets: kicked out at 16, raised a child alone, partner at Zhang & Associates. James Harris, for perhaps the first time in his judicial career, seemed at a loss for words. He stared at Chloe, seeing his own mother's features reflected in his granddaughter's baba. Helen Harris recovered first, her social instincts kicking in. "Perhaps we should take this somewhere more private," she suggested, gesturing toward the library. As they walked, Lily noticed her mother's hands trembling slightly, the first crack in her perfect facade she'd ever witnessed. The library was exactly as Lily remembered it. Dark wood panels, leather chairs, and the lingering scent of cigars. "You've certainly developed a flair for the dramatic," Helen said, closing the door behind them. "Ambushing us at James's retirement party? Ambushing?" Lily's laugh was bitter. "Like you ambushed me that rainy night? A 16-year-old girl with nowhere to go?" James sank into one of the leather chairs, suddenly looking every bit his age. "We did what we thought was best at the time." "Best for whom, Dad? For your reputation? For the family name?" Chloe, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "I've always wondered something," she said, her voice steady and clear. "Did you ever try to find us? Did you ever worry about what happened to your daughter and grandchild?" Helen's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her flinch. We had people keep track, discreetly." "You knew," Lily's voice cracked. "You knew where we were all this time." "We knew you were alive," James admitted, "that you were in school. When you passed the bar exam, it was in the legal journals. And you still didn't reach out?" Chloe's question hung in the air like smoke. "Pride," James said finally, looking older than Lily had ever seen him. "Damn pride. Each year it became harder to admit we were wrong, to face what we'd done." "Do you know what I remember most about that night?" Lily asked, moving to stand by the window. "Not the rain, not the fear, not even your angry words. I remember sitting in that diner, thinking about how I would never treat my child the way you treated me." She turned to face them, and I kept that promise. Chloe has never known a day without love, without support, without knowing she is valued for exactly who she is. Helen's perfect posture crumbled slightly. "Lily, I'm not here for apologies," Lily interrupted. "I'm here because Chloe deserves to know her family history, good and bad, and because I wanted you to see exactly what you threw away that night." She pulled out a folder from her briefcase. "These are the documents for the Lily Harris Foundation. We provide legal support, housing, and education for teenage mothers. The annual budget is now over $2 million. I'm here to invite you to be part of it, to help other girls who find themselves where I was 10 years ago." James stood slowly, taking the folder with trembling hands. "You've built all this. I had helped people who saw a scared teenager and chose compassion over judgment. People who understood that mistakes don't define you, how you handle them does." The silence in the library was broken by a soft knock. Isabel Zhang poked her head in, her expression concerned. "Lily, the press is starting to arrive for the retirement announcements. They're asking questions about the young lawyer who caused such a stir." Helen's social radar immediately went into overdrive. "The press? This could be disastrous for Dash." "For your reputation," Lily finished. "That's still your first thought, isn't it, Mom?" But James raised his hand, silencing his wife. For the first time that evening, he really looked at his daughter, not the teenage girl he'd banished, but the accomplished woman before him. His eyes moved to Chloe, studying his granddaughter's face with growing wonder. "No," he said firmly. "No more hiding, no more shame." He turned to Helen. "We've been wrong for 10 years. I won't be wrong another day." Helen sank into a chair, her perfectly maintained composure finally cracking. "But what will people say? They'll say Chloe spoke up," her voice clear and strong. "That Judge Harris's daughter overcame every obstacle to become one of the state's most respected family lawyers. They'll say she turned personal tragedy into triumph by helping others. They'll say she's someone to be proud of." Tears began rolling down Helen's cheeks, smudging her expensive mascara. "We missed everything," she whispered. "Your graduation, Chloe's birth, all the milestones." "Yes, you did," Lily acknowledged. "But Chloe's story isn't over. She's applying to colleges next year. She wants to study social work and law like her mother." James cleared his throat, visibly struggling with emotion. Would you both consider having dinner with us? Perhaps this Sunday? There's so much to learn about each other." Before Lily could respond, Chloe stepped forward from her purse. She pulled out a small photo album. "I brought this," she said, holding it out to her grandparents. "Mom kept pictures of everything. My first steps, school plays, debate competitions. I thought maybe you'd like to see what you missed." Helen took the album with trembling hands, opening it to the first page. There was Lily, much younger and clearly exhausted, holding newborn Chloe in the hospital. Another showed Chloe's first birthday celebrated in what was clearly a modest apartment. Page after page documented their journey. Lily in her graduation robe, Chloe winning spelling bees, holidays spent in simple but joy-filled settings. "Look at them together, Helen," James said softly. "Look at how happy they are." Despite everything we did, Lily watched her parents poring over the album, their carefully constructed walls crumbling page by page. This wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. That would take time, trust, and proof of genuine change. But it was a crack in the foundation of a decade of silence. "Sunday dinner would be nice," she said. Finally, Chloe makes an amazing apple pie. She learned from Nancy, the diner waitress who helped us that first night. She's coming to Chloe's graduation next year. She's never missed a milestone. The implied message wasn't lost on her parents. Some family is chosen, built through love and support rather than blood. Back in the ballroom, whispers had turned into a low roar of speculation. The crowd parted again as the Harris family emerged from the library. But this time something was different. James Harris walked with his arm around his granddaughter's shoulders, while Helen clutched the photo album to her chest like a precious treasure. James approached the podium, tapping the microphone. The room fell silent. "Many of you came here tonight expecting a typical retirement speech." He began, his judicial voice wavering slightly. "Instead, I'm going to tell you a story about pride, mistakes, and redemption." Lily felt Chloe squeeze her hand as her father continued. 10 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life. I chose reputation over love. I turned my back on my 16-year-old daughter when she needed me most. Tonight, she returned not as a failure, but as a triumph, not to seek revenge, but to offer healing. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Helen, standing nearby, raised her chin proudly, not in defiance this time, but in acknowledgement of truth. "My daughter, Lily Harris, represents everything I should have been as a judge and failed to be as a father. While I was passing judgment from my bench, she was building shelters for young mothers. While I was protecting my reputation, she was protecting the rights of children in crisis. She took our worst moment and turned it into hope for others." Lily felt tears forming, but refused to let them fall. This wasn't about tears anymore. It was about transformation. "And my granddaughter, Chloe," James's voice cracked slightly, "whom I'm meeting for the first time tonight, shows me what true grace looks like. She stands here, accomplished and compassionate, a testament to her mother's strength and love." He turned to face Lily directly. "I spent 30 years on the bench passing judgment, but the hardest judgment I faced is looking in the mirror, knowing what I did to my own child." Today that changes. James announced that he would be donating half of his retirement fund to the Lily Harris Foundation. Helen stepped forward and added that their summer house would be converted into a temporary housing facility for teenage mothers and their children. The crowd erupted in applause, but Lily barely heard it. She was watching Chloe, who was beaming with pride and possibility. This was why she'd come back, not for revenge or validation, but to show her daughter that even the deepest wounds can heal, that it's never too late to rebuild what's broken. Later that evening, as they prepared to leave, Helen touched Lily's arm tentatively. "That little coffee shop on Mason Street, it's still there. Perhaps we could meet there tomorrow morning before Sunday dinner." Lily remembered countless mother-daughter conversations they'd had there years ago before everything fell apart. 9 a.m., she agreed. "Chloe has debate practice at 11. I'd like to hear about that too," Helen said softly. "About everything." 1 year later, the graduation caps soared into the air as Cedar Brook High School's class of 2024 celebrated. Among them was Chloe Harris's cap, decorated with the words, "From struggle comes strength," in golden letters. In the audience, 3 generations of Harris women sat together. Lily beamed with pride, while Helen dabbed at her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief. The past year had been a journey of small steps, difficult conversations, and gradual healing. The Sunday dinners had become a weekly tradition, though not always easy. There were moments of tension, old hurts that surfaced unexpectedly, and times when the weight of lost years felt overwhelming. But there were also moments of connection, Helen teaching Chloe her secret chocolate cake recipe, James helping with mock debate preparations, old family stories shared over coffee and dessert. The Lily Harris Foundation had flourished with the added support. The converted summer house, now called New Beginnings Home, housed 6 young mothers and their children. James spent his retirement days there offering legal advice and, sometimes more importantly, grandfather-like wisdom to the residents. After the graduation ceremony, they gathered at the diner where Lily's journey had begun. Nancy, now the owner, had reserved their usual booth. Her gray hair was completely white now, but her eyes were as kind as ever. "Full circle," Nancy said, serving them coffee. "From that rainy night to this sunny afternoon." "Speaking of full circle," Chloe announced, pulling out an envelope, "I got my early acceptance letter." Lily held her breath as Chloe opened it. "Yale Law School's class of 29, she read proudly. With a full scholarship, Helen reached across the table to grasp her granddaughter's hand. "Your mother broke the cycle," she said softly, "and you're going to help others do the same." James, who had joined them after parking the car, slid into the booth. "Have you told them your other news?" he asked Chloe with a knowing smile. Chloe grinned. "I'm starting an internship at New Beginnings this summer. We're launching a mentorship program, pairing teenage mothers with successful women who've been in their shoes." Lily looked around the table at her daughter's bright future, her mother's genuine smile, her father's proud eyes, and thought about how life's hardest moments sometimes lead to its greatest purposes. "Mom," Chloe said, interrupting her thoughts, "tell Nancy what happened with Sophia." Lily smiled, thinking of her latest success story at the foundation. Sophia was 16, kicked out like I was. She just graduated high school with honors, and her baby boy is thriving. She's starting community college in the fall. With a little help from her honorary grandparents, Chloe added, nodding toward James and Helen. Nancy brought over a special dessert, her famous apple pie, the same kind she'd served Lily that first night. "On the house," she said. "Some things need to be remembered and celebrated." As they shared the pie, Lily realized that healing doesn't always mean forgetting. Sometimes it means taking the broken pieces and building something new, something stronger. Her family wasn't perfect. They were still learning, still growing, still finding their way back to each other. But as she watched Chloe excitedly discuss her plans for the foundation's future with Helen, while James made notes on a napkin, she knew that sometimes the longest journeys lead exactly where you need to be. "You know what I've learned," Chloe said, looking at her mother with those wise beyond her years eyes. "It's not about where you start. It's about how you choose to write your own ending." Lily smiled, remembering the scared 16-year-old she'd been and the woman she'd become. "No, sweetheart," she corrected gently. "It's not about the ending at all. It's about having the courage to begin again as many times as it takes." Outside, the summer sun painted Cedar Brook in golden light, promising new beginnings, second chance, and the endless possibility of tomorrow. 5 years later, the New Beginnings home had grown into a sprawling complex, now occupying an entire block of Cedar Brook. What started as one converted summer house had expanded into a campus with educational facilities, a daycare center, and transitional housing units. Above the main entrance, a plaque read, "Where every story gets a second chapter, the Harris family legacy." Chloe, now a second-year law student at Yale, stood at the podium during the complex's 5th anniversary celebration. At 25, she carried herself with the same quiet confidence that had become her mother's trademark. "When people ask me about my family's story," she began, "they often focus on the night my mother was thrown out. But I prefer to talk about what happened next, about the community that formed around a teenage girl and her unborn baby." In the audience, Nancy sat in her wheelchair, her white hair crowned with a festive hat. Though retired now, she still baked pies for special occasions at New Beginnings. Beside her sat Victoria Zhang, whose law firm had become the state's leading advocate for family rights. Helen and James Harris, now in their 70s, held hands in the front row. The past 5 years had transformed them. Helen had traded her country club memberships for volunteer work, becoming known as Grandma Harris to dozens of young mothers. James had established a legal aid clinic specifically for teenage parents, working tirelessly to change the very system he had once represented. Lily watched from the side of the stage, thinking about how life had come full circle and then spiraled outward into something greater than she could have imagined. The foundation now had branches in 3 states, with Chloe spearheading an initiative to take it nationwide after her graduation. "But our work isn't finished," Chloe continued. Today, I'm proud to announce the launch of the Nancy's Angel Scholarship Program, named after the waitress who offered shelter to a scared teenager one rainy night. This program will provide full college scholarships to young mothers who show the same determination my mom did. Nancy wiped tears from her eyes as the audience applauded. Lily remembered all the late nights she'd spent studying in that diner, with baby Chloe sleeping in a carrier while Nancy kept the coffee coming and offered words of encouragement. After the ceremony, they gathered in what had once been the Harris family home. James and Helen had donated it to the foundation 2 years ago, converting it into an administrative center and emergency shelter. The formal dining room where Lily had once felt so unwelcome now hosted weekly support group meetings. "Remember when you couldn't even imagine stepping foot in this house again?" Chloe asked her mother as they stood in Lily's old bedroom, now a counseling office. Lily nodded, running her hand along the windowsill where she'd once placed that life-changing pregnancy test. "Now it's a place of healing instead of judgment. That's what real redemption looks like." Helen appeared in the doorway carrying a photo album. "I found this while cleaning out the attic," she said softly. It was filled with newspaper clippings about Lily and Chloe's achievements over the years, carefully preserved despite the decade of separation. "You kept track of everything," Lily realized. "Every day away from you was a day of regret," Helen admitted. "But look what you built from that pain. Look how many lives you've changed." They were interrupted by the arrival of Sophia, one of their first success stories, now a college graduate and foundation counselor. She carried her son, now 6, who immediately ran to hug Grandpa James. "We just got our 10th client this month," Sophia reported, a 16-year-old named Lily. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. Lily smiled, thinking about this new Lily, hoping she would find the same strength, support, and eventual triumph. Later that evening, they all gathered at Nancy's diner, now run by her granddaughter, but still serving the same apple pie. For generations sat around the table. Nancy, the Harrises, Lily, Chloe, and several of the young mothers from New Beginnings. As Lily looked around at this extraordinary family, some bound by blood, others by choice and circumstance, she realized that sometimes life's greatest blessings come disguised as its biggest challenges. Her journey from scared teenage mother to successful advocate hadn't just changed her life. It had created a ripple effect that continued to touch countless others. "To new beginnings," Chloe proposed, raising her coffee cup. "And to the courage to create them," Lily added, thinking of all the young mothers out there waiting for their chance at a fresh start. The diner's bell chimed as new customers entered, and life went on, full of promise and possibility, just as it had that rainy night so many years ago, when a scared teenager found hope in a cup of coffee and a stranger's kindness. Lily's story, from a young girl rejected by her family to a successful woman, is a powerful testament to the strength of determination, perseverance, and the ability to rise above challenges. Despite the obstacles, she not only found forgiveness, but also helped countless other young mothers overcome their circumstances, creating a new future for herself and those around her. It's a journey of growth, of reclaiming family love, and also a journey for those who never give up. Lily has shown us that nothing is impossible if you remain steadfast in your goals and know how to create change, no matter where you start. If you found inspiration in this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel to always receive motivational stories, life lessons, and meaningful messages. Share this story with those you care about so they too can find the strength and inspiration to overcome life's challenges. Subscribe now so you don't miss out on the exciting videos to come. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.